Yes.
Well, my name is Michelle Russell. I'm actually an investor and a podcaster. I've been doing this for several years, way longer than I would care to talk about. But I've been investing in real estate since the late 80s, early 90s. Um, and I have a podcast right there, Short Term Rental Revenue. You guys caught me right as we're rebranding because apparently short term rental revenue we've been doing it for about 3 years at that the podcast there. We had a podcast before this, but the short-term rental revenue we've been doing for 3 years, and it's hard for people to type in. So we're now going to the BNB Boss. So up in that little corner, that's much easier, right? So it's like way easier to type in BNB Boss than it is short-term rental revenue. But for right now, we're still doing our short-term rental revenue. And we still have that website up and running. And actually, if you stay till the end of this, you get 3 free gifts, and it will have something to do with short-term rental revenue, obviously.
Hey, Michelle, you want to move your camera just a little bit down because all we see is your forehead.
Oh, really?
Yeah, just FYI. Unless unless the look you're going for.
Yeah, that's my look. How's that?
That's perfect. That's perfect.
Better?
Yes,
Okay.
okay.
Yeah, just look at my forehead. Sorry, I'm not using the usual location that I'm in because we've been doing some moving around. It's COVID, guys, so everybody's using the office for home now. Nobody's working, everybody's remote. So anyways, let's get this started. Just a little bit about me. I've been investing for a long time. I've worked with some really great people, and I'm going to go through this really quickly so you don't have to be bored, but these are my parents, lovely people, and my lovely husband. We've been together since we were 16 years old, so about 40 years now. We have 5 children, and these are my 3 sons. This is TJ and Nathan and Steve, my daughter Nicole, and my daughter Brittany, and my granddaughter. And then this is my son-in-law Dan and Stacy, daughter-in-law. But I started a long time ago. I got into this business, or rather, you know how the dominoes fall in your life. I had gone to travel and hotel school. And I had worked for, I don't know if you guys know Gavin McLeod, but he's Captain Stubing. I had worked in the travel industry for many, many years. And I somehow got involved with Tony Robbins, and I started working for Tony Robbins and being a staff member there. And I was doing what they call a wealth mastery up in Monterey, California. And this man came to speak, and the man changed my life. And that was Robert Kiyosaki. Robert was speaking on real estate. And he asked me, because I was backstage, he asked me, he's like, hi, Michelle, I was showing him where everything was because that's what I did. I was a venue liaison. Because I was good at hotels, I could pick out hotels and, do all this stuff with hotels and everything. So he said, have you ever invested? And this young girl that I said, oh, I've invested in myself. And God bless him, he did not laugh. He did his presentation and invited me to a 3-day real estate workshop in Scottsdale. And this real estate workshop, I found out later, was like a $10,000 workshop that he had gifted to me. So I attended the workshop and got to love investing. And those 3 days, I was just like, oh, this is so exciting. I went back to thank him. And he said, well, where do you live? Figuring that I must live in California where all the other people live. And I said, no, I live in Arizona. And he said, well, why do you work remotely like that? And I said, because I get to travel to Fiji and Hawaii and Florida and all these wonderful places. And so he said, you know what? You should come and work for me. So I worked with Rich Dad Seminars for 7 years until they defunct. And Rich Dad Seminars was 7 years. I didn't miss a seminar. I mean, I was there all the time and got to learn so much about real estate. It just became my love. Property investment and everything. I started picking up properties left and right. And this is before the big bubble, right? So I was picking up dozens and dozens of properties, had them all over in Arizona, mostly around the university in Tempe, Mesa, and stuff like that. Well, the bubble was coming, and we had a ton of speakers for years. Literally for about 2 or 3 years, we knew this was a bubble, or actually even more probably. But once it got closer, Robert was like, we have to sell everything. If you can't cash flow your properties at half the income, then dump them. And I was like, dude, like, that's pretty much all of my, that's all my rental properties. If I was getting paid half, I probably couldn't cash flow anything. So we dumped everything. My husband thought I lost my mind. Of course, women, we just change our mind nonchalantly. And I was like, no, there's going to be a crash. And sure enough, there was a huge crash in the market. And we were lucky enough. My husband always says, gosh, you were so lucky. I'm like, okay, I was lucky. But we were lucky enough to have sold the majority of our properties except for one. But when I got back into real estate investing, everything had changed, you guys. I mean, back then, if you wanted to pick up a property, you went to a real estate agent. There was no online stuff. There wasn't Zillow. There weren't any of these really cool sites. And everything had really changed too, because people were paying cash. And we were like, what the heck? How are these people like paying cash for these properties? It was just like, it blew my mind how everything had changed when we started getting back in, because we had all this money and we're like, okay. So what I did was I invest over a couple $100,000 relations with, coaches like Dean Graziosi, Cody Sperber there, Scott Lancey and his wife, Amy. These are guys I paid to be personally, like, literally, I was like, how much to personally work with you? And if it was 20 grand, it was 20 grand. If it was 70 grand for Dean, I had paid 70 grand to work with Dean. But literally, I had to know what was going on and how to do what I wanted to do. And so I got back in and I went full throttle. I started doing more fix and flips, and we were having a good time doing that. But my short-term rental business got started soon after, because it kind of changed my life. When I was down in Florida, I was staying at one of my short-term rentals. I had picked one up there because of my parents. And when my dad passed away, he left it to me. And so whenever I was fixing and flipping down in Florida, I was staying there. Well, when I wasn't there, I was, using it and cash flowing it. And I started to trade in the time, because his was a timeshare. I would never buy a timeshare, but my dad did and left it to me. So I was kind of lucky, but I started going everywhere. And I was like, oh man, you know what? I should just pick up a property here. I should pick up a property there. And so that's kind of what changed my direction with short-term rentals. What changed my life was in a 9-month span, my mom got cancer, and there she is when she got cancer and got diagnosed, but she had pancreatic cancer. And 9 months later, she looked like that. And that kind of changed my life. I knew it was time to sell all the stuff I didn't want to play with anymore. I wanted to get more serious. And I also knew, because I hung around the same friends that I hang around now, and I hung around then, were my short-term or my rich dad friends, that there was going to be some kind of correction coming again. And I was like, all right, I don't want to be holding on to a bunch of properties that are going to lose money. I just want the properties that are making money. And so I started to sell my properties. Well, what happens when you sell your properties? You lose your cash flow. So I had to come up with more creative ways to buy and rent short-term rental properties. So fast forward to today, I rent from my friends. I own properties. I turn properties that I was renting into, more positive cash flow, or I sell them and get rid of them. And I teach others how to do it by doing my podcast. So love doing my podcast. What's really funny is most people, especially when you say short-term rental revenue, they go, what is a short-term rental? You're like, yeah, it's an Airbnb. Everybody, it's like, they know the term Airbnb. They really don't know the term short-term rental. But a short-term rental is basically defined as any rental that is less than 30 days. If it's a longer-term rental, it's going to be more than 30 days. Now, some states have it 29 days. You just have to find out in your city and in your state what defines a short-term rental in your area. That's the biggest thing, is just having people come and visit. And most of the time, actually all the time in our case, the properties are going to be furnished, and you're going to run it kind of like a little hotel business. That was really great for me, because what did I go to school for, right? Hotel, travel, right? So that travel industry, I get to travel all over the place. I get to run my business like a hotel business. And then I also have my real estate business on the acquisitions part. So I basically have two different businesses. Now, what's really different about short-term rentals is you make a lot more money than you do on regular properties. Most of the time, you can make 2 to 3 times what you can make with a long-term lease if you're doing it correctly. But you have to make sure that they are legal, because more and more often and in more places, I'm lucky because I live in Arizona and Florida. I have 2 homes, and both states, Arizona and Florida, are amazing, amazing for short-term rental properties. We have a lot of snowbirds coming into both states, and a lot of people traveling in and out of our states. So we have really positive laws so far for short-term rentals. But there are a lot of states that have way more strict laws than we do. They're way more strict with homeowners associations. Some cities, like if you go to Las Vegas, you cannot have a short-term rental in Las Vegas, but you can have a short-term rental in North Las Vegas. I mean, you better know the laws about where you're going, and not just for your state, for your cities, your counties, your homeowners association, and the developments that you're in. You really have to make sure that where you're going is legal. And then also check all the papers and all the, everything that you've got, any kind of newspaper or anything that is telling you what's going on locally, because things change all the time. They really do. So you really have to make sure that your short-term rentals are legal, or you're going to have trouble with neighbors. You're going to have trouble with your HOA. You can have a lot more trouble because you can actually lose your property. So it's something that you have to check out, but it's really worth it. There are 3 main types of short-term rentals. One is purchasing and owning a property. One is rental arbitrage, and that's if you rent a property and turn it into a short-term rental. And the other is co-hosting with an owner of a property. So that means you don't own it, you're not renting it from them, you're working with them as a co-host. So I'm going to go over those really quickly for you. Owner properties, obviously, are the properties, the houses that you buy, or maybe it's it doesn't have to be a house. It can be a townhouse, a condo, it can be a casita, it can, whatever you want to turn into a rental. If you own it, then those are your owned properties, right? So that's pretty easy, but not everybody has a lot of money to start with. And because, when the market's a little volatile, some people don't want to pick up any more acquisitions in certain areas unless they know that that's a really stable area, right? So there's a couple other ways. You can do something called rental arbitrage. And rental arbitrage is, I did that with quite a few of my friends. When I started selling my properties and I was missing that income, I started calling my friends up and I said, hey, you have some properties over there by the university, don't you? And they said, oh yeah. And I said, how about I pay you 6 months in advance, and I'll turn it into a short-term rental. You'll just sign my little agreement here, and we'll both have, something that makes it legal and stuff. And I made sure, obviously I checked the rules and regulations in their area first, but I started setting up properties as short-term rentals that I didn't own. And that's called rental arbitrage. And that's quite lucrative in some areas. For instance, the properties that we were renting down in Tucson, we were paying roughly $550 to $600 a month for these little 1-bedroom properties. And we were cash flowing $2,500 a month on them. And even after all the expenses, we were making a minimum of $1,500 a month. Now, we were making $1,500 a month. The owners there, they couldn't make $1,500 a month because they were only charging us $550, $600. So do you see what the difference is? It's a huge, huge difference. But it is not easy, guys. It's not the easiest thing in the world. It's running 2 different businesses, right? When we own the property, we're running it as a rental business and as a short-term rental business. So they're two different businesses, but it's a lot of fun. I really love doing it. There's also something called co-hosting. And this is great to do in an area like Scottsdale, right? So when you have properties that are larger properties and somebody wants to put them up for sale, for instance, and let's say it's a $700,000 property. When you hit above a certain mark in any market, it hits like a lull. That's, this is the top of the market. And most of the time, like in the area I live in, it's probably around 500,000. Scottsdale is probably a little bit more, but we're right around 700,000. It takes longer to sell those properties. And if somebody has moved, they don't want to pay the rent or the mortgage on two different properties, right? So what we do is if we see somebody selling a property and it's been on the market more than 30 days, because here in Arizona, I mean, everything is moving quickly, right? We know that these houses should sell within 2-3 weeks. I mean, we've got a 21-day window and the majority of the markets that we're in. And so if we see something stalling, we'll go to the realtor and we'll make a deal with them. And we'll pay the realtor a tiny little commission. We'll sit down with them and the homeowner, and we'll let them know that we have professional cleaners that go in there and they will be cleaning the property, but we'll leave so many days a week in a window that they can show the property, but we're going to be using that already furnished property to use as a short-term rental. And we're going to split the money with the homeowner. We don't have any rent on that. We don't have a mortgage or anything on that, but that's called co-hosting. There's a few different ways to do it. And I can go in on a whole training on co-hosting, but it's a lot of fun. It's the third way that people do short-term rentals. Now, short-term rentals can be shared spaces. That's actually how Airbnb began. Airbnb began with people selling little spaces or just even an air mattress on the floor. That's why they called it Airbnb. It was literally somebody put an air mattress on the floor of their small space somewhere in New York City or in California and LA area, and people would rent it for 20 bucks a night, just give them some place to stay, right? They were like, look, I just need a place to lay my head and that's all I want to pay. That's literally how Airbnb got started. But Airbnb wasn't the first one around. Actually, VRBO, Vacation Rental by Owner, has been around for a lot longer. We've used VRBO, and in some markets, VRBO is actually, especially Florida, it's a lot bigger, and you have a lot more people going to it than Airbnb. But now we've got HomeAway. I mean, there's just an infinite number of spaces where you can list your properties. You can also do full spaces, and these are the most popular now. A full property is basically you go in and no one else is sharing the space with you. You're not going to have to share a bathroom. You're not going to have to share a kitchen with anybody. You've got the whole entire space. All the space is for you to use and your guests privately, no shared spaces. And that's what most guests are looking for. So today, that's where the majority of us focus. We focus on full properties. Now, what are we going to look for? This is a beautiful, beautiful resort area off of Mexico. And we look for those types of properties, but I threw this in here so that I wouldn't forget. It's a good thing too, because the one thing you have to remember when you do short-term rentals is buy the proper insurance. Now, this is crazy, but if you stay till the end of this, I've got a whole list of the best short-term rental insurances that you can get. Now, I know a lot of you will argue because maybe you already have a space and you're like, oh, I've got mine listed on Airbnb and they have $1 million policy. And you're like, that's $1 million liability policy. And that is completely at Airbnb's discretion. There are people who have had guests fall asleep with a cigarette and their house burns down, and Airbnb will not pay that. They've decided, nope, it wasn't our fault. We had nothing to do with that, and they don't pay. So everything is up in arms about the discretion of Airbnb. It's their personal insurance. We do not, and any of the courses that we teach and all of our members in our membership area, we do not suggest that ever you keep just Airbnb's policy. We go with somebody called Proper Insurance. Proper Insurance is a great company, and they're backed by Lloyd's of London, which is one of the oldest insurance companies in the world. And we use them. And what's really nice about this is, especially when you're doing like rental arbitrage or something, when you do rental arbitrage, you can use that as leverage when you're talking to a landlord and say, hey, by the way, I'll actually pay your homeowner's insurance because it includes everything. And it actually turns into a benefit. And it's also a benefit for us because we know we're backed by not just our insurance company, not just by Proper Insurance, but by Airbnb as well. So we kind of have double insurance just in case something doesn't get covered. But we've never had a problem with that. And it's actually pretty incredible and very easy to get. A lot of people get scared, but don't be afraid. It's a good quality insurance you have to look for when you have short-term rentals. It's not hard to find, but your regular homeowners policies and your regular landlord policies will not cover a short-term rental because they don't have a lease with you. If you're giving a stranger the keys to your house and let's say you had a guest from you were renting out, you will not be covered. So we have a huge episode on that. And I hope if you're even interested in doing short-term rentals, that's one of the first podcasts that you listen to is about our insurance, because there's a ton of warnings in there. I can give you, some scary horror stories, and there are websites all over about Airbnb not paying and other companies not paying. So it's a really good reason for you to get proper insurance. But the biggest difference, it's a whole different species doing short-term rentals than doing long-term rentals. I love short-term rentals for a couple of different reasons. Number one, obviously the income is much bigger, right? The income it's night and day compared to long-term rentals. But not just that, the best part of doing short-term rentals is the wear and tear on your property is incredibly low. I mean, every time you have a renter move out after a year or 2 years or 5 years or whatever it is, I mean, you've got to go back in there and you're cleaning carpets and you're tearing things up and repainting and fixing any damage that they have. Well, when people go for a vacation and they're only there a few days, and an average of, depending on where you live, like here, there's an average of 4 days. They usually don't use any of the utilities that are around or your big appliances. So nobody's cooking. They're always going out to eat. They're not doing the same wear and tear, moving furniture around, and things like that. Like when somebody lives there, they're not putting things on the wall because it's already decorated, right? So they're not living in it like somebody would live in a space. And so your flooring lasts longer, your cabinets last longer, your appliances last longer, and everything looks amazing because you've got professional cleaners going in there, 6 or 7 times a month and cleaning up your place. Your place looks spick and span. And so this is a really good attribute to help you get a property from a landlord too. You can say, look, you will never, ever have anyone take care of your property the way we do. We fix everything. We have everything done right away. If there's a leak, we're on it. If something breaks, we're on it. And, it's a much bigger challenge to, start to orchestrate it. But once you get it orchestrated, it is a well-oiled machine and it just runs and cash flows. And it's amazing. And the property, like I said, it just takes care of itself. So they're two different animals. Now, there's a lot of things that have changed over the years. Before, when we first got into the short-term rental game, you could go to Goodwill, right, and pick up some weird looking furniture like this yellow couch over here. It's like, you could do all that and that would be fine and dandy. But the thing is, now people are a lot pickier. It seems that over the last, I would say over the last 3 or 4 years, probably maybe even 5 years, people have started to get just really picky about the space that they're in. No longer can you just get a bed at Goodwill and then, put some non-matching sheets up and just open your doors. You're not going to be able to sell your property. The pictures tell it all, and people will just scroll through to the next good looking property. What you really have to do is, if you're going to get into the short-term rental game, you have to remember that it's going to be about the quality of your furniture, and literally the decor is going to really matter. So much so that we hire design teams for our locations. And you think that that would cost a lot, but actually in the long run, it always makes our properties one of the top 10 in every location we're in. We are always one of the top 10 properties. And that's because we look good and people want a place that looks good. So as Robert Kiyosaki used to say, you never compete for last place, right? You always have one of the best properties. And so that's what we go for. So COVID changed a lot of things. Because now people don't come from all over. So for instance, our properties in Florida, we used to get a lot of people coming in from South America and Europe, staying at our short-term rentals in Florida at Disney World. Well, now that COVID is there and people can't come in, they've got, it all shut down from Europe, and European travel can't come in. It seems like it's more like staycations. So the majority of people are traveling within a 150-mile radius from home. So let's say somebody, is living in Tucson, they might come up to Phoenix or Scottsdale for a vacation, and vice versa, right? Or maybe somebody from Phoenix might go up to Sedona, or somebody from Dallas might, just go over to one of the lakes just past, Fort Worth and stuff. What people are staying closer and traveling within shorter areas now. And we can see that it used to be a big no-no to take anybody from your same town. We would tell you, don't do that because they're going to just have a party and they're going to trash your place, and that's why they're doing it. Well, now since COVID, everything has changed. I mean, there's a lot more staycations, and people want to be able to cancel a little bit easier, but I don't recommend that. But you can listen to my podcast and find out why. But choosing your location is really important. In no other niche in real estate, I don't think location matters as more than when it does in a short-term rental. Your location makes all the difference in the world when it comes to a short-term rental. What you're close to. So if you're in a university city, you want to make sure that your short-term rental is close to the university. And if you're gearing towards parents, right? If your avatar of your clientele is parents. If you are in a vacation city like Orlando, you've got to be close to a theme park. You can't be way down. Everybody is, there are properties that you can find in cities that are close by, like Davenport or Kissimmee or something, but the real money comes the closer you are. So you're going to have a lot more people booking your properties. You're going to have, you're going to be able to make a lot more per diem when you have a property that's in a better location. So just like if you went to Hawaii, obviously, or Mexico or something, you're like, look, I want a beach location. Those are the properties that go first, and they go for the most money. So location, location, location. Never is it more true than with a short-term rental. And choosing your location is pretty easy. I put in some AirDNA. AirDNA is one tool that you need to write down. This is one of the best websites to get this is a bunch of, mathematical nerds sitting in a room, figuring everything out. And these guys are amazing. Like, they're the most brilliant people, because they can tell us about each and every city. You can literally, if you get a membership there for your zip code, you buy by zip code, and you can put your address of a property you're looking at, and they'll be able to give you a diagnostic readout of the amount of money that you're going to make on that property. And we used to, before COVID, it would be like almost to the penny. I mean, it was so accurate that it was amazing. Now, COVID has kind of thrown a monkey wrench into it, because different areas are recovering faster. I mean, because obviously California is still shut down, right? So, but you can go over to Florida, and Florida is amazing, and Florida is open. So I'm not going to get political or anything here, but I'm going to tell you that the states that stayed open, those are our friends. We love them because people are traveling in and out of them. So now this is from last year and they haven't gotten the new ones up yet, but you can see these are the average occupancy rates. Now occupancy is very important. If you're talking about keeping your properties full, now it's not so important if you're getting a really good per diem. And even if you're like, if you had a 50% occupancy, but you can make your property cash flow, you know, by day 10 or 15 or something, obviously by 15 you have to, but the whole point is your occupancy rate is really, really important. And knowing how much you make per day and knowing your occupancy rate, those are going to be the two most important things. And you can get all that information on AirDNA. Now, these are the #1 cities. And this is kind of funny. This is not Davenport, Iowa. I know they want to tell you it is, but it's not. It's actually Davenport, Florida. I know that only because, first of all, the number is down there. But second of all, I know the city, you know, around Orlando and stuff, and that's Davenport. Davenport, Iowa would be over here, and it's not there. So just an FYI, they kind of messed up on a couple of, but these properties will tell you what the occupancy are, and when you add that to the per diem, you can see these are the average per diems. These are the top cities, and Park City, Utah gets a whopping $458 per night. Now, also remember too, that a lot of these properties, they might be bigger properties. So when you're in, say, a town like our properties down in Tucson by the university, those are 1 bedroom because you're going to get a mom and dad who are coming to visit. You don't do very well with a 6-bedroom property in Tucson because not very often, maybe one time a year when the gem show comes in, do you get a bunch of people trying to share a location. And so different locations, like our properties in Florida, our 6 and 7 bedroom properties in Florida are constantly booked, okay? Because you get a lot of family members coming in and they'll have several generations of people. So you're gonna have to think about those things when you go to a place too. Like, what is the average guest like there? Why are they traveling there and who are they traveling with? Those are really important things. So when it says Park City, Utah, I gotta let you know that the majority of those are full homes, and a lot of times they're 3 and 4 bedrooms. So they're not always 1 bedroom. They're not comparing apples to apples here. They should, but they don't. But you can see the difference there. But then you can take all of that, right? You can take all of it and write it out. Now, this is pretty cool because it's going to tell you, and this is a great way to figure out if you want to buy a property there. If you're buying a property in Honolulu and that property costs you $1 million, you know, or $900,000 for a 3-bedroom or something there, and you're only making $42,000, I can tell you right now that I can spend $200,000 in Tucson and make the same amount. So where you're getting your best return on your investment, it's good to know what the whole amount of money, what your entire income is for the year, right? What your net income is for the entire year, because then you're going to know whether or not you want to invest there. One of the best places, and you don't see it on here, I don't think, is actually North Las Vegas. North Las Vegas properties are incredibly inexpensive to buy, and they make a lot of money. So relatively speaking, when we're doing our return on our investment, we're figuring out our ROIs, it's amazing that Tucson and Las Vegas, North Las Vegas, are some of the biggest and bestest spots that we have to invest in. Not so much Florida anymore, not so much all these other places sound good, and Honolulu is way out the door, because Honolulu now, they've got all of Hawaii has a rule that you cannot turn your property into a short-term rental in Hawaii unless you've owned it for 5 years now. So a lot of the rules and the laws and the regulations really, really impact what's going on. So how do you price your properties? Don't even screw around with this until you get really, really good at doing your short-term rentals. For the first several years, and actually on most of our properties, we still use them, is Wheelhouse. There's a bunch of companies out there and it's all for automatic pricing, but these guys, you pay them a very small fraction of your income and they will do everything. Again, they've got their little nerds in a room, their little math majors, and these guys are going to town figuring out what the demand is every single minute of every single day. If a new concert comes in or there's a new festival or something happens and they see the demands going up, they raise the price according to that. These guys are on it like it's incredible. So you don't have the time to waste doing all the research that these guys do. Just paying them their money. I'm always like, just pay them their money and they will make sure. You can be aggressive in your pricing or you can be a little more conservative. You can set it for what you like, but they're going to give you a whole entire span and say, okay, well, the price per night in your area is between this and this. And you'll be able to click on and look at the similar properties. So if you've got a 1-1, you can look at other 1-1s and you can see what they look like and make sure that you're in good competition, like you are competing with them and that you don't, you're not looking like a shack in in the backwoods somewhere in West Virginia and they've got something from Beverly Hills, right? You've got to make sure that you're competing. So Wheelhouse and AirDNA are the best two tools that we have in our pocket, and Smart B&B too for our messaging, but these are the best ways to price it. Airbnb has an automatic pricing. You do not want to use Airbnb's automatic pricing. And the reason why is Airbnb, they're all about getting the bookings, right? They don't care how low your price is. And they just want to get it booked. So when you use their automatic pricing, you're leaving about 40% on the table compared to using a company like Wheelhouse. And Wheelhouse and all the other automatic pricings will tell you that. And it's the truth. We did that. We've done the A and Bs and compared them and said, okay, let's run this one and let's run that one and see where we make more money. It's always with Wheelhouse. So we recommend them highly. And how do you get profitable fast? Well, being profitable fast means buying at the right price and making sure that you do all your due diligence beforehand. So many people think that it's going to be the easiest thing in the world to just throw an extra bed in there. They go on Airbnb, they see that somebody else is renting something for X amount of dollars and they just put it on there. And then they wonder why they lose their pants. And it's like, you don't know what you're doing. You have to know your area. You have to know your competition. You have to know the difference between, compare apples to apples. So your 3 bedrooms to 3 bedrooms, 1 bedrooms to 1 bedrooms, just like when you're doing your pricing and your comps on buying a property, right? You're not going to, one neighborhood over makes a huge difference. You've got to know all the variables. And so we are able to get profitable within the second month. By the second month, we're always making money. The first month we might be a little bit off, but the second month we're making money on our properties and cash flowing. So you should be able to do that too. We've got lots of great information on the podcast, lots of great articles for free. If you go to shorttermrentalrevenue.com, you'll be able to get a lot of information. There's so much information out there for free on this stuff, you guys, that you'll be able to find. But just make sure you do your due diligence because you should be profitable fast as long as you are doing your homework and you know where you're buying. You're not buying, and putting, like I said, not to say that it's a bad thing to go to Goodwill or something, but it's definitely not the best place to furnish your new B&B with. Not anymore. Like I said, at one time it was easy, but nowadays, they're watching HGTV and they want something that looks nice. So you've got to compete with them. So hopefully I'm wondering how fast I went through this with you guys, but I've got our contact details here. And I said, pardon our dust because we are rebranding. We're going from the Short-Term Rental Revenue podcast to the B&B Boss podcast. a little bit more geared towards women. So we're softer colors, softer outlook, right? But you can find us there, and sometimes on Facebook when I'm not being blocked, because obviously working for Kiyosaki, he wrote a book with another well-known real estate investor. And so I get knocked off of Facebook a lot. They've already pulled our channel off of YouTube a couple of times, just when we were talking about the mass exodus out of California. So sometimes I'm on Facebook. The best place to always find me is on the podcast and the podcast channel, and on inside the groups on our website, because we have a really nice group inside there. So I'm always around there. But if you want to right now, if you go to shorttermrentalrevenue.com and do /Women Rock, I've got 3 free gifts for you there. So you can get our insurance recommendations. You can get questions to ask your cleaners, this is like invaluable. The most valuable tool you have as a short-term rental owner is your cleaning companies. You have to have cleaning companies that are, 24/7, that somebody can run there if something is wrong, that are 7 days a week, right? So 7 days a week. So there's a lot that will not work on the weekends, and that's not good. There's a lot of cleaning companies there that won't touch the inside of refrigerators or food or anything. And now with COVID and stuff, they have to wear gloves and masks when they clean, not shake out sheets. I mean, there's a whole bunch of different rules. We have them roll up our sheets and stuff and take them. So there's a bunch of new COVID restrictions that we follow in order to make us COVID compliant on a few of the websites that we're on. So those questions are imperative. And then there's also automation tools like SmartBnB. They do our messaging for us. So when somebody, that way you're not constantly on your phone and being taken away from your business. We call those minimum wage activities, right? You've got somebody who's going to be answering your requests, answering questions about the internet, answering questions about the location, the restaurants next to there. So all of that stuff will be answered for you by somebody like SmartBnB. They're a great tool. And there's Guesty, places that will host, they'll basically do almost everything for you, but you have to get, once you get up above a certain number of properties. But again, the insurance information, and that is crucial for getting into, making sure that you're protected. Always protect your assets, right? That's key and crucial. So I wanted to see if you guys, I went through it kind of fast. I just wanted to make sure that I got everything in there for you. And if you've got any questions, I'm not sure how I can see them.
You actually are right on time. It's perfect. That was the perfect presentation. So yeah. So if anybody has any questions, you can either we can either unmute you or put them in the chat, and I'll make sure to make it if there's any questions.
All right, perfect. I'll unshare this. So let's see. Stop my share screen. Did you get your free gift?
Spotlight you so everybody can see you.
Actually, all right, great.
Okay, there you are. Okay.
All right. So if you remember / on the short-term rental revenue /Women Rock.
Yeah, I put the link into the chat for you.
Yep.
The short-term
there you go.
revenue.com /Women Rock, which is true. Women do rock. Okay, good. Any short-term rental questions, right? I know y'all have a lot of questions because y'all had some earlier. Any questions that y'all want to ask her? Ask Michelle. Put them in the chat, please. You can do it. It's the last hour. I know it's the end of the day. Everybody's sleeping.
It's like, put it in there. Pretty cute. Oh, questions about MLS. Saying call active.
Those I think
that was from before.
Yeah.
Oh,
those are older questions. So, and okay, good.
All right, so no questions.
Okay, yeah. It looks like
fantastic.
We put everybody to sleep.
I hope not.
I'm just kidding. Okay, good. All right, so I guess everybody's just kind of hanging out. What can we talk about? Let's see. We need to go through everything. What else can we talk about?
I think the biggest things for short-term rentals is, I know a lot of people are afraid right now because of the COVID, and it did change our market quite a bit, but honestly, we didn't lose money. we switched over as soon as COVID hit. We switched over to long-term with nurses, Stacy. So we just went to nursing sites and we started hosting nurses who were traveling.
Can you talk
And-
about that for a minute too, actually? Like what, yeah, so how did you pivot during COVID?
COVID was, as soon as COVID hit, we saw that they were going to do lockdowns. And so we being in the short-term rental industry, there are different websites that you can go to. And so we, especially all the people in our group, I said, start marketing on all the nursing sites. We're like,
What kind of, like
start
what
marketing
nursing
on
sites
all the
are out there?
corporate sites. I've got a big list. If they go into our group on Facebook, I'm sure that we've got it in there somewhere,
Okay.
but there's a whole list of nursing long-term, so you can switch into 30 days. Now, one thing you have to be careful is if you have a lease that says that you're only going to have short-term rentals with a landlord. Let's say you're doing a co-host or a rental arbitrage, right? Your landlord might not want you or might not allow you to have somebody stay in there more than 30 days. So that's the only time that we had to be careful. We had to take a look at all of our leases, all of our HOAs, and make sure, because a lot of HOAs will, they'll even have stipulations about short-term and long-term rentals. So, look at your HOAs to make sure the 29 days, 30 days, which one is it, and which one is approved. And so we went through those really quickly and then switched over, and we got a lot of really great nurses. And most of our places that we buy, I mean, I've always done this because Robert taught it. We always buy close to universities and hospitals and stuff. So a lot of our properties, I would say a good 90% of our properties are close to hospitals.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I stayed in I went down to a little town. We bought a storage facility and I stayed in the storage. I mean, and I stayed in an Airbnb because, because we need something to take our dogs too. Right. But this Airbnb, I'm telling you, it was like a Days Inn.
Oh,
it was not like what you're describing at all.
Yeah. And honestly, they will not make the money that somebody else can make if they just upgrade it now. Nobody wants that stuff. But you know what? Most of the pet places, that's why. If they're pet friendly, they tend to put less, I would say less attractive, less expensive furniture in there. They're thinking that the dogs are going to get all over and they don't want to pay for the cleaning. So a lot of pet friendly B&Bs are definitely less attractive. So yeah.
So I was going to ask, so what are you over the next year? Then what are you focusing on? Are you doing are you purchasing and just doing it yourself? Are you doing co-hosting or arbitrage, or what are you focusing on?
Well, I've actually been selling my properties because I was watching the market and seeing what was going on. And so I've been selling a ton of my properties and going into where I can buy with a whole bunch of people into a bigger place. We're just because I'm getting old.
Luxury or what?
Yeah, luxury resorts. And they're more they're almost like a co-op where we're all buying together, but then we're turning them into short-term rentals. Mm-hmm. So, so it's just a bunch of friends that we've been investing for a while, because as we get older, you've got less hands-on stuff. You want to do more of I want to find this and do this and do this, the fun stuff. And you want to do less of the not so fun stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think luxury vacation rentals that's a huge thing right now.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So for REI USA, we do have Rachel. She's going to be speaking on Sunday. All she does is luxury vacation rentals, and she's also a teacher for REI USA. So if you're
nice.
That, then make sure that you do that. You go to that. All
right, I definitely will. Yeah, luxury rentals. Honestly, it's kind of like houses. When you get started buying your first properties, you buy smaller ones. Where the rent was lower and stuff.
Yeah, it's like you're
exactly. And then after a while, you're just like, you know what? I'm tired of the headaches.
Now you're like, I made some money to put it into a bigger property.
Exactly. And that's pretty much what you do with short-term rentals too. You get into smaller areas, and then all of a sudden you start buying bigger houses, more luxury houses. And actually too, think about it. the more you offer somebody, the more money you make anyway. So we always look at a property and say, what else can we give them? You know, what else can we offer? Can we get people to drive? You know, so we have Uber drivers that we have who can pick up people up from the airport and bring them down to the houses in Florida. We have personal chefs. I mean, we have all kinds of amenities that people don't think of. And we get things, you know, things that will bring up the price of the house without really having to change too much about the house. You know, but they're always in great locations. So just offer more value. Give
Do you
them
have any
more for their money.
properties that are outside the country or no?
We have some that, but we're not doing those in short-term rentals right now because
Okay.
a lot of the laws have changed, and because of the shutdowns and stuff,
Yeah.
and being an American and we've got, you know, Panama is like one of my favorite places. I want to go, and I know, yeah, I've been there a couple of times, took my daughter, and we're going to retire there. So we've got some property and stuff, but they, you know, they've got the great pensionado program for retirees and everything. But when you buy property there as an American, you have certain rules and restrictions. And so it's the same, you know, properties, I think in Mexico would have been easier, but then again, you know, there's some areas of Mexico that are getting really dangerous again. So, you know.
Have you ever been to the Bocas?
Oh yes, Bocas del Toro.
Yes.
I love Bocas del
I
Toro.
know,
That's one of my
isn't it so
favorite
beautiful?
places.
Isn't
Oh
it so
my gosh,
fun?
I love them.
Yeah,
I told my husband that's one of the places, and you know, they never have hurricanes there.
they don't? I didn't know that.
No, they have never had a hurricane in Bocas del Toro.
Crazy. I
It's
love
hurricane
that.
free. I know, it's beautiful.
Mhm.
Red Frog is down there, right?
The taxis.
Yeah. Oh, nice. The water taxis are so cool. They go so
Yes.
fast.
I love
And the
it.
little dolphins
If
jumping.
anybody goes to Panama, you have to go to the Bocas. They're like a little
Yeah.
cluster of islands right off the coast of Panama.
Yeah, it's in the Gulf side and it's super north, so very close to Costa Rica.
Mhm.
Very close to Costa Rica. But there and Boquete is beautiful. David is a little too hot for me. I'm from Phoenix and I was in David and I was like, I can't take this. This
Yeah, no,
It
Panama.
is
I love
crazy.
Panama. I love Panama. It's a good country. It's nice.
It is a beautiful, beautiful country. The
We
city is
have
great.
one final question just before we get Melissa on. Please explain the difference in short-term rental and Airbnb.
Okay, well, short-term rental is just renting out a property for less than 30 days. And Airbnb is a platform where you list that property. So it's basically like, it's like a place to market your property. Like, let's say the MLS had a website, that would be what Airbnb is. And there's a bunch of them. There's HomeAway, there's vacation rental by owner, there's you can even be on hotel.com now. I mean, there's a bunch of them that you can list your properties on, and you can even create your own website and list your properties on there, but then you've got to market that. So this way, when you list your property on Airbnb, you don't have to pay to market it. You're basically paying Airbnb for their advertisement because millions of people every single day go to Airbnb to find a place. And when they hit a location, they're going to find yours. And that's why you pay them.
Awesome.
Does that
That's
answer your
perfect.
question?
Yeah, and everybody because people keep asking, you can meet all of the teachers are in the Facebook group. So have you joined? Did you join the Facebook group, Michelle?
I haven't seen the link for the joining the Facebook group.
Questions and stuff.
Yeah, so tell me what the name of the group is so I can find it easy.
It's REI USA members.
REI USA members. Okay, I can find it.
So everybody
in
should
there
be
right
in
now.
in the private Facebook group, like introducing themselves and being like, yo, I just heard this, let me ask you a question, or is this a good deal or whatever. That's what the private
Absolutely. I'll go in there now and make myself known.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for hanging out with us.
Hey, no problem. I hope I got through everything for you guys and I didn't go too fast.
No, and like I said, the replays will be in the members portal, so you can watch that at any time. Okay.
Perfect.
All right. Thank you so much
thank you
for your
so much
time.
for inviting me. Thanks, Stacy. All right.
Yes,
Bye.
take care. Okay.